myself again.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Tuesday night and by God, doesn't things always happen on a Tuesday night? I'm joined by Liam Kennedy from Newcastle World. Good evening, Liam.
I love it when a plan comes together on a Tuesday, Steve.
God, honestly, I was going to say you couldn't script this, but you can't script it because it happens every Tuesday, more or less. And we've got used to this over the, over the whole takeover scenario since, January 2020 when everything really started getting exciting and, we all thought about the Saudi takeover. And we seem to have one of these every other week. But my take on it, before I ask you, is simple. It's nothing to get excited about. I genuinely still think that the takeover is going to struggle to go through. Certainly the one that we were hoping was going to go through, which would have made us the richest club, certainly in Europe, if not the world. I think that people are too quick to jump the gun and promote any change of company's house. And I think my mindset is still going to be that there's nothing doing. The key date, of course, in September isn't today. It is the 29th of September when we find out when the CAC case will take place, if the CAC case will take place. So I think we just concentrate on that. Unfortunately, sorry to pop anybody's balloon or to cancel the popping of champagne corks or the opening of cans. But I genuinely do not think this is anything major. If it is, as I've said over the last couple of months, I'll happily take a custard pie in the face on this one and, be happy for everybody to say, well, you were wrong and you know nothing and I told you so. But I don't want to get into the zone again of building people's hopes up. And that's what I felt. That's what I felt like we were going to be doing if we came on tonight and said, yeah, it's great. It's, I don't even know what it means. If you want my honest opinion, I've had it explained to us now, of course, but when it was put up on Company's House, I'm told it's a positive move. But in all intents and purposes, it makes no difference to me. So I'm going to continue living in the Steve Wraith bubble, which is quite lonely, but quite a quite happy one where the takeover's off. I'm just basically sitting watching Steve Bruce's crap football, hoping and praying that somebody comes in and takes the club off Mike Ashley's hands. Sorry I went on a little bit, Liam, but I just thought I'd have to get my opinion out there.
I was looking at the clock there thinking, how long is he going to go on with this opening line?
Makes a change.
So, right, my take, we'll start with the positives on it. Going back to your comments there, Steve, I've got absolute faith somebody will buy this football club and somebody will buy it off Mike Ashley, will not be stuck with him forever. Positives from the actual Company's House update today, in my opinion, would be that stuff is happening with the actual company. That would be the biggest positive that I could take from it. Although, and this will be a negative, it looks to me very much like a bit of fancy housekeeping. Realigning of status with regards changes to other companies. But we've got to remember this is the company. This is the company as well as PZ Newco, which is the other side. This is the company that would facilitate the takeover, like the vehicle that the takeover goes through, the changeover hands, etc. But I really wouldn't. I know there's a lot of Twitter frenzy out there. It's people are on tenterhooks, they are. And I've had a few people come at me saying, I've got to give the right answer. Look, I'll be honest with you. It could be something significant, but it's probably not, is kind of where I'm sitting at the moment. Having spoken to certain people, heard certain sources come back with certain bits of information. That doesn't mean it isn't something significant, but it doesn't sound like it is. We've been here before, of course. There's been lots of stages of bits of fancy housekeeping. And that's why I go back to that positive that I said before. If it was something that was absolutely dead in the water, I mean, the takeover itself, the whole deal, we know it isn't because there's legal cases going on, both of which are at a point where nothing is really happening with them. That's the key thing to take from this little period of stasis, is nothing is happening. We're waiting on an arbitration date for next year. We're waiting on, as you mentioned, the CAT case hearing on jurisdiction. Should the hearing be heard should it be an internal, within the Premier League's internal process, or should it be heard in an open court of law, effectively, with the CAT, Competition Appeal Tribunal? And that'll be the 29th, as you mentioned, Stephen. And that's kind of where we're waiting now. It's the preparations for those cases. We don't even have a date for the arbitration. So we know it's not dead. But the fact that there is tinkering with the companies that would facilitate that takeover, if you're looking for minor positives, and I know that seems to be something that a lot of people out there on social media are, it's that there is that little tweaking and tinkering of those companies. It would be certainly more alarming had we... I know. Look, I've got updates to that particular company. I think a lot of people else out there would have also got that email today saying there'd been an update. There would have been a lot more concern had that company been closed down. So if you're really looking, you're desperate to take a minor positive from developments today, it would be that. But what I'm saying is, I don't definitively know whether it's something. I can't definitively say it isn't a step in the right direction, but I would suspect from hearing who I've spoken to, etc., who sources have spoken to, that it would sound like it's probably more likely to be some fancy housekeeping, realigning of companies, of status of shareholders and companies, etc., on companies' house, rather than anything that's pointing to something that's imminent. I've seen a lot of people. There's a lot of in the knows who talk as if something's going to happen. They keep talking. There will be an update in 2 days. There will be an update this week. This will happen by X, Y, and Z. The people involved in this process don't know those dates, don't have those kind of updates to hand. So anybody else giving you them, just treat everything with a pinch of salt, hefty pinch of salt. Because I had somebody, and I had a little bit of a laugh, bit of a to and fro with somebody on Twitter just previous to coming on here. Just general banter, a bit jesting. But he mentioned mental health. He mentioned people's mental health. And I really wouldn't let this define your mental well-being, the idea of this takeover. I want it as much as you. But ultimately, I can see where Steve's going with this and where he's gone. And he's a well-sourced man himself, has really good sources. And he's saying that he's in a bubble himself that where it's off. And if it happens, it's a surprise. It's a positive thing. I don't think anybody's going to complain to anybody if we all get shocked tomorrow and it happens. But my understanding is that it isn't going to happen. And it can be a coping mechanism, because I think some people maybe need to develop that little bit of a coping mechanism out there and accept that every little update doesn't necessarily mean it's all positive, because there might not be a pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. There might not be one there. There might be. That doesn't. I'm not an inherently negative person. Some people might say I am, but no, I'm not. And I think there could be a positive end to this. It isn't absolutely dead. There potentially is other interested parties. We'll wait and see. There might be a pot of gold, but please don't sit out there thinking that there is a definite pot of gold at the end of this for Newcastle United in the very near future, because ultimately you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment. Take every update with a pinch of salt. Take it with the kind of thing that I'm saying, that look, a bit of skepticism didn't harm anybody. I would just keep calm, keep your feet on the ground. That was mentioned by a few people on Twitter who were so at me in the last hour or so. Just keep your feet on the ground. We all want the same thing, but just don't let it define your mental health. There's plenty more to life out there than Newcastle United, and plenty more to life than this takeover. Although, and I get this as well, sometimes it feels like the be all and end all.
Yeah, it does. Okay, we'll try and get through as many questions as we possibly can. Malcolm Kennedy got in right at the start. I can't get it on the screen, but I'll scroll back through YouTube for some of these. Hi, lads. I attend the matches with my grandson religiously, and I'm concerned about the protest at the Leeds match. Is there any sort of news on what action has taken place during the protest? cheers. And I mean, this is something which I guess you've done your research, Liam. We talked about it last week actually, and I saw you put an article out on Newcastle World about the protest. You've had a lot of DMs.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people talking about this. Look, that's a very real fear. The person getting in touch there, sorry, I missed the name. The person getting in touch said, I'd be doubtful that anything happens, but I couldn't say definitively whether it wouldn't. But yeah, I don't think that Leeds game's got a great feel about it. You expect Newcastle will get stuffed. Leeds will bring quite a lot of fans up on a Friday night. Possibly, it wouldn't be out of character for them to go around causing a bit of bother around the town on a Friday night. A few bevies down them. So yeah, I wouldn't. It might not be the best of games to go to, but do I think there'll be anything protest-wise in the ground? There's nothing that I've heard from anybody to suggest that there will be. There could be. There's been talks about people. A lot of people talking about what they would like to see other people do. But there's a big difference between talking and action, and I'm not really sure I've seen anybody out there say that they're going to act on these. Some are extreme, some are bizarre, some are illegal, some more peaceful, creative ideas on what could be done to show everybody out there, that the biggest audience possible on a Friday night on Sky, show everybody out there that Newcastle United's not accepting this. But I think, particularly when you look at sort of the tendencies at the protest meeting last week, which you were at, Steve, particularly when you see the reaction. I know Joe Toon for Change tried to get something kicked up for the first game of the season against West Ham, and the vitriol that was thrown his way. I just, from the bits that people I speak to who've been involved in these kind of process, I just don't know if there's an appetite among the Newcastle United fan base. And that was kind of my thinking last week when I asked everybody out there, come on, is there an appetite? And what would be your main driver? What would drive you to protest? I just think that it's a word mentioned a lot during Mike Ashley's time, and I think it resonates. And it's apathy. Apathy rules. Apathy reigns supreme at St James's Park. And I genuinely don't know. There will be a trigger. There would be a trigger that would change that. Something would push it over the line, but just doesn't feel like we're close to that yet. So I would think, look, I would hope with all the security in place, etc., there'll be a good police presence at St James's Park that Friday night. You should be safe with your grandson or whoever it was you were taking. You should be safe. That's the least you expect. Going to a public venue in a place like that, you should be safe. But I would just maybe avoid some of the bars around the town. Maybe avoid the train station. The common sense stuff. When you've got a big away following turning up who might be pissed up effectively, and possibly some of them out to cause a bit bother.
Yeah, we'll watch with interest. I mean, the meeting itself, we've already covered it on here on the Fab Four on Friday, but it was much to do about nothing really. I've been to many of these. Not a great turnout, it has to be said. I think apathy has hit the fan base massively, but credit to the lads for setting it up. Credit to the lads for putting it together. It was very well, put together. And Peter Clennell, obviously we met and had a chat with, was instigating a lot of it, and got up on his feet and said a few words. And the guys from the Magpie group got up and said a few words. But it's just, unfortunately, just repeat and fade. It's it's the same old thing, and it has been for the last 14 years, and nobody really seems to have the answer. And like you say, so many suggestions about what to do, but a reluctance to do it amongst the fan base, I think, is probably the way to put it. Obviously, we had a response, and you touched on that briefly there from the club with quite a lengthy statement, Liam. What did you make of that?
Oh, I thought it was a big boot in the balls for Steve Bruce. That was my take on it. Anybody who has been following the kind of content that I've produced on Newcastle World will have probably seen on Saturday I published a piece, quite a lengthy piece actually, for our content list. We don't tend to do big, huge pieces, and that was one that I decided just got writing on Friday night. And really, I thought that statement was incendiary. I thought it was explosive, and it was something that I didn't expect the club to do. We know Steve Bruce wasn't happy with what happened at the back end of the transfer window. We know that. We know that he was desperate for Hamza Chowdhury. Hamza Chowdhury thought he'd signed for the club. He thought it was effectively done. Leicester City thought it was done. Newcastle United had other ideas. And I think that was just, it was, look, I've also written a piece on this that look, I think Steve Bruce possibly tried to fall back on the old managerial notion that, I've got what, but I'll squeeze a bit. I'll be able to squeeze a bit more. And probably his biggest mistake at Newcastle United is not realising that the Callum Wilson win that he had in the transfer market, where he managed to get them to bring in an experienced 28-year-old, I think at the time, on a long 5-year contract, managed to get that deal done for 20 million. He didn't realise that was the exception at Newcastle United and not the rule, because he's only just suffered exactly what every single other manager suffered. Newcastle United could have spent money. Steve Bruce isn't the fault as to why Newcastle United didn't spend money. He couldn't have predicted COVID. And also, he's not tight-fisted. He's not the person with the purse strings. That comes from higher above. But I also believe, was there a bit of, it's not naivety, but did he read the room wrong at Newcastle United? Did he think he could probably squeeze, go on, I'll definitely get another, they'll not let us go without another one. When effectively it's he's gone to shop with a tenner and expected to buy 3 crates of beer. You know what I mean? And then he's complaining that he can't get what he wants. I mean, he was told what he had-ish at the start of the window. And Newcastle United kind of spent what he thought he was going to have. He was the person briefing the 10 million stuff at the start of the summer. So he probably thought he had about that. Did Newcastle United spend all of that 10 million? I was kind of led to believe maybe. But now I'm sort of hearing maybe not. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it was less than that. So was he naive? Was it just reading the room wrong? Yeah. But that anger that started to kind of gather pace, Steve Bruce started to get a little bit of that sympathy, which he's never really had from the fan base. There was a lot of people out there saying, well, you know what? I think he's been stitched up because we're not happy with this either. There was almost a little bit of thinking that people could relate to. The club moved on Friday night, very much so, to nip that in the bud immediately. And I think that statement didn't come from Lee Charnley. I think that came from above. I don't think it came from Mike Ashley either, but I'm not going to name names. I think that came from above. It was very, the tone, the way it was done was very much that kind of way. And I think it was a big 2 fingers up to him saying, you knew what you were meant, you knew what you had, and you chose to do what you did. And there's no point complaining about it now because we run the club this way and that way. And look, in a weird kind of way, take all the Bruce stuff out of it. It was actually quite an enlightening statement, whether you agree with it or not. Football clubs don't really, privately owned football clubs or companies in general, don't really have to explain to their customers, which is effectively what fans are, why they did certain things with their money and their finances, which is what it is. It feels like our money because we're personally invested in it and we put it in, but it isn't in a company's terms, in a business terms. We're effectively consumers to a football club. There is emotional ties, of course. It's very different. I'm not going to be somebody that is blind to that because I feel it too. But ultimately, they didn't have to explain their financial decisions to anybody. And they did try and shine a little bit of a light on process, on the way that they do things, on why they're thinking, why they do certain things. I thought some of that was enlightening. Largely, it just confirmed everything we already knew. I don't think there was anything particularly new about the process, the way they do deals, how they broke the rules, as Steve Bruce said, and what their budgets were and why they were affected. Because the type of things that I've been writing since January, the type of things that a lot of other people out there have been writing the same things too. But I thought it was in a weird kind of way, it was a bizarre, totally bizarre statement. they didn't have to explain. They did, but I think this was more. A lot of people took those kind of bits from it, but the thing that I took the most was the big finger that was pointing at Steve Bruce, and it was basically just saying, right, you shut your trap now, getting everybody involved. And you knew what you were meant, you knew what you had, and when you went all in, which I can't remember the word that they used. It was something like they kept talking about a collective decision. Like everybody knew what this was. You were in on this, Steve, and they never mentioned him by name. And it was sort of, it kept saying, look, you knew about this. And I think that was the bit for me that I took from it, saying it was basically saying, right, you shut up, get back in your box, and get on with your job that you're paid for. And the biggest part about that is the relationship thing, because Steve Bruce doesn't really have a lot of friends now at St James's Park, which is probably for the first time we've ever been able to say that. He's never really had the fan base, nor has he ever really made an effort to build up that relationship with the fan base. Even if he had, I've got doubts whether he would have been able to do that. I think had he had some success on the pitch, had Newcastle United been better, hadn't flirted with relegation, had he not said some ridiculous things, started off with the kind of the confusion over, oh, well, we're aiming for top 10. That's the club's aim. But is it the club's aim, Steve? No, actually, no, it's not. It turned out to be his aim and not the club's. The club was just stay up as usual. Started with all of that, then went on to the fans who weren't even in the stadium, being criticised almost for a toxic atmosphere on social media. Totally mental stuff. He probably hasn't helped himself in that way, so he's never going to be friends with the fans. But he always had Mike Ashley. He always had the people above him at the football club, the support of those around him. Some of the players, despite some of the issues that have gone on, there is some support there in the dressing room. That's really dwindling now. I'm not saying within the dressing room in particular, but there is that idea that those above now have gone cold, whereas they were tepid before. And if I was Steve Bruce and I was in his position, I would feel quite cold now, to be honest. You'd start to feel like where's looking around you, it's at James's Park, up to where the Lee Charnley sits, and I've got no mates up there anymore. And I certainly look around all four corners of the ground. I don't have any mates there either. And look on the pitch, and there might be 4 or 5 who maybe aren't my mates on there as well. You start to think it's a unique position that Steve Bruce has found himself in his 2.5 years here, that he's always had that support from above. I think the statement really underlined that warmth from above has just been turned off, and it's very much a right. You're now in the results business. You now go and do what you're told to do because you're not getting any sympathy off us. You knew what you were coming into here, and shut up and accept it. That's kind of what I took from it. Steve, did you?
Yeah, I mean, it was the ultimate 2 fingers to Steve Bruce, and it was one of those situations that you look at it and go, wow, he's literally chucked Bruce under the bus. Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether you're like Rafa, who attacks the owner, as he did in Mike Ashley, and suffered the consequences, not getting any money, embarrassed, and then departs. Steve Bruce has brown-nosed him, for want of a better opinion, a better expression, and he's got the same treatment. It's as simple as that. Lots of questions coming in. Lots of people asking about, Steve Bruce, has he chucked it? Dave Harrison says. Other people asking, has Steve Bruce got, only a couple of games to go? Is it getting to the point now where the run has been that bad that Bruce, may be out of a job, Ashley might fire him? What's your take on that? Because, of course, the general public, always keen to get a photo of somebody on a plane going away on a trip. I mean, international break means a break. Newcastle haven't had a great start to the season. Steve Bruce, though, I guess is entitled to go away. But he's had quite a while to go away on holiday. He chooses to go, on a budget flight to wherever he went to. And, he ends up getting snapped by the general public. And, of course, that doesn't go down well because it makes its way onto social media and winds people up. So, Bruce, where do we stand with him?
Look, I don't think he's chucked it, not to my knowledge. I think he'd be back, and I think he'd be the manager, and I think he'd get a little bit of time. I don't think Newcastle United, I think they've proven in the past, that they're not the type of owners at the moment who make snap decisions like that very often, on managers anyway. I mean, they hung in with Alan Pardew through thick and thin, because although there was some history revises and Pardew's reign looks better than it did in time, but it was dreadful at times. They stuck with him. They stuck with John Carver when it was utterly dreadful. Flirted with, really got close to relegation that year. Stuck with Steve McLaren probably for 3 or 4 more games and cost themselves a place in the division. Stuck with Rafa Benitez when there were breaks in that contract that they could have got rid of him. When it was, I can't remember what it was, but it was 8 games or so at the start of the season, which was dreadful. They stuck with Steve Bruce last season during that really, really grim run. To me, look, things have changed, like I said above. But what I would say is that if you look at history, and is there precedent for them pulling the plug too quickly? No, not at all. I think there's probably more. It's more likely that Steve Bruce will get a little bit more time. Get stuffed off Man United, get beat off Leeds, go towards the next international break with some really poor results in bottom of the league. I think there'll be some sharpening of thought processes and mind at Newcastle United. But I still think he's at least, and I'm saying at least, probably got that long. And they will pick up the odd result along the way, probably, because they're not as bad as they probably started. I think they will pick up the odd result, but they're very reliant on 2 or 3 players, one of whom isn't in the team, hasn't been in the team all season. I know it's a debate that's been had a lot on this show, but it's no surprise that an upturn in fortunes and more points start coming on the board when Martin Dubravka plays. When Martin Dubravka doesn't play, Newcastle United don't get as many points. It's just, it is the way it is. They've missed him. They have missed him. Should Callum Wilson miss any period of time, it would be an absolute disaster. And I think everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. Alan St-Maximin can't really do it on his own. He needs some help in there. Joe Willock still doesn't look quite there, although I thought he was improved against Southampton. And it'll be good for him having a bit more time in and around the rest of the squad. Miguel Almiron, for me, the stats don't really paint the picture. But I think anybody watching Newcastle this season will see that he's still that lost little boy in the number 6 role in that midfield. Just doesn't play to his strengths at all. I think we need to find a system and a way of playing that kind of gets the best out of the most in that squad. And what I would say is that hopefully Steve Bruce has been sitting around the pool with some, on the phone to Graham Jones, sketching up some plans, and maybe they've come together and concocted something, which they actually did in the last international break. If everybody remembers, we had the Brighton debacle where it literally looked like he's done, he's finished, we are going down. There's only one way this club's heading, and they went and had that 9-game, as referenced in the daft statement, had that 9-game run, which was top 6 form. But that came from the devising of this 5-3-2, 3-5-2, whatever you might want to call it, formation, away from the, I think it was a 4-3-3 kind of split strikers type thing before that, which ran its course. For me, this 5-3-2's ran its course, and Newcastle need to change to something that suits more of the players in their team. Too many square pegs, too many round holes, and hopefully in the shorter time that Steve Bruce and the coaches have had with the players in this break, hopefully they'll have managed to devise some kind of shape and change. I'm not sure they will, because I know it's something they've been working on all summer, but fingers crossed there'll be a rethink of what's going on at the moment, because it just doesn't seem to be working. As for the holiday thing, if I've got a chance to go on holiday, I probably will. All right. So I'm not going to criticize a man for going on a holiday, but it's about what it looks like. That's the problem. It doesn't look great. There's probably ways and means he could have done what he wanted to do a little bit more discreetly, not rocking up at Newcastle Airport, grabbing his Gregs and jumping on a jet too. You know what I mean? It probably wasn't the smartest way of going about things. Could he have maybe gone up to Edinburgh, flown from there? Could he maybe have gone down to London and done it from there? And he was less likely to be spotted. But I don't think Steve Bruce really worries about the PR side of things. I don't think he worries about how he looks. We've seen the photo of him standing on the outside of the huddle against Burnley. Made him look daft, but it probably wasn't daft. We've seen him turn around and have these really sharp retorts back to Graham Jones at the start of Graham Jones' term here in January and February. That's kind of just the way he is, probably, and that's the way he speaks, but it doesn't look good. But I don't think Steve Bruce worries about how it looks. I think he's a bit old school like that, and you have to be better than that. So if that would be the criticism I'd have him, it would probably be that, you probably should have been a bit more discreet if you fancied a few days in the sun with a wife.
Yeah. Look, I agree. Everyone's entitled to a holiday, and unfortunately for Bruce, again, just not really savvy about what this job entails in Newcastle United. And
that's it, Steve. That's it. It's everyone's entitled to a holiday, but just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for him to do it at this point.
No.
And yes, there's been examples, and he hates it. But there's examples going to Benitez didn't take a summer holiday because he knew what it meant. Look, sometimes, and everyone out there who works for a living will know, sometimes just cutting it off and having a break can be the best thing you can possibly do. And it might not be a bad thing to say to the lads in the dressing room, just go away, take the missus away for a few days if you can, do whatever you need to do, just go, and I'll see you again in 5 days' time. Look, I get that as well. But it just doesn't look good when the way things are going, and it was always going to get criticism.
Yeah, it always was. Big shout out, as always, to our sponsors. Spider VPN are with us again in September. Google Spider VPN, and you will find a great website there which can help you with all your internet needs. Protect your photographs, protect your passwords, protect everything on your computer. I stuck a link out there on Twitter earlier on today and across my social media. Have a click on it, have a look at it, and see what you think. There's also a big shout out to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free, and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Also, a big shout out to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 0191 389 7245. And last couple of days for Darren Baldwin Funerals, telephone 0191 478 2730. Email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Big shout out to John as well at qtechshop.co.uk. The makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. Give them a check out, and give John a shout out in the chat as well. And also Jab Signature, whose new range is coming out soon. They're the guys who do our flyers. First time visitor to the channel, click Newcastle Legends logo down in the bottom right hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video, and click share to share it to your other social media. Drop into the comments to ask a question or to speak to like-minded Newcastle United fans. And we're also on all your podcast providers such as iTunes and Spotify. In case you missed the show, you can catch up on your iPads and what have you at another time. And we do still have the food bank bucket, NUFC fans foodbank.co.uk matchday bucket will be live again on Saturday for the Manchester United trip. So you want to make a digital deposit into the account, do that, and you'll still go into the raffle to win the Newcastle Consortium Supporters Watch when the pool match is finally confirmed again. And couple of little events coming up as well. Don't forget the Christmas do. Well, all the tickets have been posted today. I got them all done and dusted, so they're all out there. So if you've bought a ticket, you should be getting that in the next couple of days. Even the tickets you bought last year, they will be now posted out. So if you want to go to that event, just pop on to newcastlelegends.com. Tickets are £12. Proceeds going to the food bank. There'll be a Q&A with Malcolm MacDonald on the night, and I will also have quite a few of the people who've been on the show there as well, so be well worth coming along to. Raffles and auctions and all kinds of stuff going on, so get yourself along to that. And the Gavin Peacock event is a little bit earlier, 29th of October at the Irish Centre as well. Tickets are £15, selling quite well. Gavin is going to be selling copies of his book at that event as well, so it'll be nice stocking fillers for anybody wanting to buy a book get yourself along there that night. And again, that'll be a Q&A, a couple of auctions and stuff on as well. So plenty coming up on the social calendar. Get your tickets from newcastlelegends.com. And just a big thank you to everybody who came along to the Town Theatre at the weekend. It was great to see everybody there. Cracking night. A big thank you to Gibbo for holding it all together. And of course to the players. We had a great lineup there. John Anderson, Kevin Scott, Rule Fox, Steve Howie, Liam O'Brien, Darren Peacock, Malcolm MacDonald, and birthday boy, of course, John Beresford. And it was a cracking night, over 300 at the theatre. And we did stick that show onto YouTube, so you'll be able to catch that on our YouTube channel. Just look for the Newcastle Legends event. Cracking night, really good night, and looking forward to getting more of those on the road over the next couple of months. And the Food Bank T-shirt is on my Twitter, pinned at the top. Normal service resume now with John getting off his sickbed. It's a Malcolm MacDonald T-shirt, so if you want to bid for that, all proceeds go to the food bank. So thank you very much for your support. Okay, the other strange one for me this week, Liam, was Gary Caldwell. He came in as under-23s coach. Big announcement. He was coming in. No mention of it being a short-term appointment. 3 weeks later, he's gone. What's that all about?
No, there was. It was always meant to be a short-term appointment. We
must have missed that, and so must some of the media, because nobody really commented on it, and a lot of people seem to be scratching their head that Kevin Richardson was now back in the position.
Yeah, it was always meant to be a short-term appointment. For me, I've had a lot of people come to us with this and say, "Is it falling apart? What the hell's going on here?" But no, it was only ever meant to be. I mean, Gary Caldwell started here, brought in by Steve Harper to bring some experience, just to be a steady pair of hands. And we've got to remember, for young lads coming up through the academy, it's a learning experience. Gary Caldwell, as well as starting his career here and having a good international career, playing up in Scotland as well, winning titles up there with Celtic and others. Also had a pretty decent managerial career, has managed at a good level up in Scotland, managed at a good level in the Football League in this country. So for me, could you lose from it? Is it a good learning experience for some of these young lads to maybe be brought on by somebody of that caliber, even if it has only been for, 3 games a month? Yeah, I don't really think. I think it's a no-lose situation personally. And I know everybody's ready to jump on the negative. I don't really see that as a negative, but that's my opinion, and I can see the rationale behind it. I can see why he was brought in to do a job there.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's clear that up, and good job you're doing your homework. Sure, Newcastle United put it on Twitter that it was short term. As I say, something which I completely missed, and I know quite a few other people did, because a lot of people were scratching their heads about it. A lot of people are really annoyed about Bruce going on holiday. Rachel, get well soon. I know you're in hospital or have been in hospital at the minute. I disagree with you, Liam. Steve Bruce, after 3 matches going on holiday, is bang out of order. He had a closed season for that. Should be working hard with the players. They need it. Priorities are all wrong. A lot of people in a similar vein, not having a pop at you, Liam, just saying that Steve Bruce was wrong. And John Brown, the other side of the fence, getting a Bruce for having a holiday is really scraping the barrel, mind. Liam, just remind us what Benitez won after not having his holiday.
Good point, John. And that wasn't me making that, by the way. I was actually sticking up for the fact that managers are just different. Some will do things different ways. Steve Bruce is a totally different manager to Rafa Benitez. And how much did he win after that? Not a thing, as we all know. Were Newcastle United a better side, though? Were they more organised? Did they concede less goals? Did they look like a team heading in a certain direction? Yes. And I'm not really sure you can maybe say that of this Steve Bruce team at the moment.
Why, again, though, do we find ourselves talking about Rafa Benitez?
Yeah. And it's something that will just never go away. I think it's obvious to make comparisons with the previous manager, especially when the manager left with things unfinished and still open. It's not like he was sacked. If he'd been sacked, you probably wouldn't have the same kind of comparisons because of that negative connotations at the end. But there was the unfinished business, the feeling of loss almost among the fan base when he did leave. I know he wasn't everybody's cup of tea. I'm not going to say that he was. You speak to some people now and they'll talk about the idea of Benitez. Look, I'm not bothered. I wouldn't have him back anyway. I didn't like the style of football. I didn't like this, didn't like that. Look at the signings he made. Some of them were crap. I think that, to me, it's all a game of opinions. A lot of those kind of ideas really skirt around the edges and don't really get to the crux of the issue. And we know he signed a lot of good players. And Newcastle United had more of an identity, a way of playing. And he wanted better for them, but wasn't given the purse strings to do that. Steve Bruce has had that, even though he hasn't been in control of all the transfers, as we know. He has had some his own way, much more than Benitez ever got in terms of finance. He's had a lot his own way. Benitez never got a £20 million player like that, like he did last summer. Never got a Jamal Lewis like he did last summer. Those were Steve Bruce ones. Didn't really get the Jeff Hendricks and the Ryan Frasers, which he got. There are some big differences, but we're always going to keep comparing. I'm not one for always looking back. I think you've got to look forward, but I think that's probably what it is, that because that was unfinished business, people do compare a lot. And I think people probably compare even more when they seem to realise that Steve Bruce really doesn't like that. Again, they're apples and pears. They're both football managers, but they're totally different people. And that's kind of the point that I'm making is, some people are saying, well, he didn't have a summer holiday, but he did. He's just had his summer holidays. He's off for another 3 days. Look, it sounds to me, he does a lot of his stuff in Portugal, has a place out there, signed a lot of players from there when he was Aston Villa manager, actually. Did a lot of his deals from over there in Portugal. And maybe that's just his, in this time of strife, maybe that's his happy place. And he's gone there to maybe just recharge the batteries for a couple of days, come back firing. We'll wait and see. I think it'll be very telling, his demeanour, his manner, the way he answers his questions at the press conference on Friday. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've got to agree with Rafa Benitez fan saying that it's funny, Rafa has got good players at Everton. It's almost as if Newcastle should have backed him in the transfer market. Colin Wilson says the difference being Rafa shopped at Poundland, like his style or not, he was organised. Dave King says Rafa was quality, Bruce is rubbish, end of debate. Ginger Hoskin says, I'm sorry, why did you praise Rafa? Pardew did a better job than Rafa ever did. Did you praise him like he was a god? He was a crybaby who ruined us and our future. Ginger, I wouldn't say he ruined us, and I know you're always very straightforward with your points and always appreciate everyone's opinion. I've got to be honest, mate, what you said about Pardew was something I said last weekend. When I was out with Liam and Keith and Steve Hasty, etc. And I just said it makes you look at the Pardew reign and actually appreciate it. That old adage of you don't realise what you've got until it's gone. And I always make a big point of the fact that I didn't support the Pardew out campaign. I saw Pardew as the perfect fit to Ashley's ownership because he just did what he was told, but actually managed to make a silk purse from a sow's ear at times. And, he got us into Europe. And that really was, down to Pardew and his management. And ultimately, him going, probably led to a bit more of a downfall. Rafa, of course, different beast altogether. Great manager for us. And what I feel about Rafa is that, he could have really set us on our way. Had he been able to find a way of working with Mike Ashley, but unfortunately that wasn't to be. Got to forget about it. Got to park it. It's in the past. The only time we'll see Rafa now is when he comes to St James's Park with Everton. That atmosphere of Steve Bruce is here, by the way, will be weird. Will be weird, but it'll be very hard for him to take. I think Steve Bruce, because Rafa will be celebrated. Bruce will be ridiculed, I think.
I wonder because there's that distance and obviously he's not really seen him or anything, I wonder what that handshake will be like. And I would love a penny for the thoughts of both men in that moment where they shake hands together, if that actually happens, if Steve Bruce is still here. And of course, you have to say it if Rafa Benitez is still at Everton. But I think he's going to do a good job there. The type of team who starts seasons really well. They did that on Ancelotti, if everyone remembers last season. But in Newcastle United, they ended seasons well. So I tipped it at the start of the season. It would be my surprise of the season. Will be Everton, and I think they're heading in the right direction. But let's park it, Steve. Let's leave it. Leave Rafa alone. We've got the man, Steve Bruce. He's sunned. He's ready. He's ready for Old Trafford on Saturday. He's ready for his arm around Ollie's shoulder. He's ready to.
Let's touch a little bit on that. I mean, it couldn't be set up any better, could it? For a 1-0 Newcastle United win and Joe Linton to get the winner.
I don't know about that.
I kind of wait to hear Toon Tipster, on Friday, giving us the odds on that, because that's what I'm going to put on anyway. I mean, everyone's expecting a resounding 6-0 win for Man United and Ronaldo to get a double hat-trick. But Newcastle could go and poop the party, and it would just be typical, wouldn't it?
Well, you'll be there to witness it. See, I'll not be there this weekend. I've got a weekend off this weekend, so I'll not witness that. But I suspect it's probably closer to the first prediction than it would be the second one. But you never know, like you say, because everybody's the way I actually look at it, and I'm again not trying not to be too negative, but all of the focus is on Ronaldo, and I'm actually thinking, forget Ronaldo. Take Ronaldo out of the equation here, by the way. And if you look at the rest of the forward line, Greenwood, Rashford, Sancho, Fernandes, Pogba, you look at all these players, they might have beat with 6-0 anyway without Ronaldo. So I could see it being one of those where, it's Ronaldo's big day. Mason Greenwood flies in, Edison Cavani comes up, one of them scores a hat-trick and they beat with 4-0 anyway. It could be easy. It could easily be that. But this is what it is. It's a graveyard, Old Trafford, and we know that. Take the Kabay win out the way. You have to go back to the 70s to be getting positive results at Old Trafford. So yeah, I don't think anybody expects anything on Saturday. And I think if you offered 2 to 3-0 to most people now, they'd probably snap your hand off. And I know that's really negative again way of looking at it, but it just doesn't have a good feel about it on Saturday. Could Newcastle go there and get something? Of course they could. We've probably had worse teams in terms of individuals going to Old Trafford in the Premier League era. So yes, of course, this team could. Do I think they will? Probably not.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting match. Whatever happens, we'll cover that a little bit later, of course, this week on NUFC Matters. Why don't we shop overseas for a new manager? Works out pretty well for Southampton. Somebody unknown might be the best choice. Not going to boo someone we know nothing about, says John. Chris Hughton has been the most underrated Newcastle United manager. I really like the guy. He hadn't done anything wrong to lose his job. I think he would have done a great job if given a proper run in longer, says Bizvajit.
Probably the only, I was talking earlier about rash decisions, probably the only manager who had the plug pulled from him in terms of losing his job. I can't really think of any off the top of my head. Maybe possibly go back to Allardyce at the start. But apart from that, they tend to have had time to make get things right when things have gone wrong.
Yeah, Rafa Benitez fan says Rafa finished 10th with the promoted Newcastle side. Pardew finished 16th with Barr, Cisse, Ben Arfa, Kabay, Tiote and Colaccini. But look, comparisons between managers. I wasn't trying to compare Pardew with Rafa. I was trying to compare him with Steve Bruce. I think Rafa will come out ahead and shoulders above Pardew if he was given the same kind of backing. But it's all ifs and buts, I'm afraid, and none of this really does us any good in the current situation. Wieldy says a Man U of the worst owners in the league, according to them. Yeah, that lasted long, didn't it? Ronaldo versus St. Maximin, that would be interesting to watch, says Tom.
Well, I suspect one will probably be thinking the ball very little and maybe getting quite frustrated if he plays on Saturday. But look, it's a game of football. It's 11v11. You just never know how things will play out. We don't even know if Ronaldo's going to start the game. Me personally, there's some suggestions he's only going to get 1 day's training with the rest of his teammates because of the isolation that he's had to have coming from his game with international side Portugal. Look, I think it would be quite an anticlimax to have a full Old Trafford and not give him his full debut. I suspect even with 1 day's training, he probably will start that game. But look, that's a decision for the manager. But I think it's too big an occasion, too big an event for him not to probably start that game. I don't know your thoughts on that, Steve. I think if he was signing here, if a big player was signing and he was only getting 1 day's training, he would still probably play, wouldn't he?
He's going to start, I think. I cannot see any reason why he wouldn't start. Unless he's not fit, and I really cannot see that being the case. I think he'll start, and Old Trafford will go mad. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Gary says, does anyone think this could be our worst season in the Premier League? What do you think? Could it be?
I don't think it will be. Again, people think it might have blind faith, but I just don't think. I think they will pick up results this season. I don't think it'll be an absolute disaster. What would rank is that? I'd be interested to know anybody out there. What is the actual points wise? What's the worst Premier League season? Because I know we've been relegated. We've been relegated twice in 18th place. Is that right? From memory, yeah. Both the bottom places, but I don't know which one would probably rank as the worst. So yeah, no, it's got an opportunity. It could easily be. But no, I think they'll be all right. But it could be tight again. If you're talking about Callum Wilson missing, say for example, at least a third of the season through injury, then that's when the goals dry up and we could have problems. And if they're going to persist with this 5-3-2, which I think is a busted flush, I said it on here last week, I say it again. I don't believe they play a system where arguably you've got more defenders on the pitch and you have attackers. You should really be able to stop goals going in. They concede more goals than they were last season. So I think, for me, they need to change it and they need to play to certain players' strengths. Will he do that? I've got a little bit of hope that in this international break they will make a transformation like they did in the last one.
Yeah, let's hope so. Trying to get through a few more questions. John, just talking about the weekend, he says, got to play Lewis and Manquillo, push Richie up the pitch, can't play Man United with midfielders in defence, it'll be suicide. I don't think you'll get any arguments from us on that.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. That's the two. I would at least make one of those changes. I think Murphy has to come out, Manquillo has to come in. Manquillo can defend. He isn't the best. He's a ranked average, really, Premier League player, but he can do it both ways. And unfortunately, Murphy's been really, really, really poor defensively this season. I thought we were seeing a player making improvements and growing, but he just hasn't improved enough defensively to definitely, for me, nail that down. Yeah,
oh god, lots of people talking about the weekend's game. Fernandez will probably get 3 penalties with his amazing diving, says Mark Cooper. Tom reckons 4-3-2 or 4-4-2 formation. What do you think, Liam?
Well, I don't think they should go out with a player less than they should. That's one of the ones that I would say.
That's a classic. Maybe he's thinking about. Maybe he's thinking that Joe Linton's going to play, mate, and it's better just not starting with him.
I know John Joe Shelby's injured, so that doesn't work, that formation, does it?
Rachel, thanks for giving me a bit of normality. She says, sat on me hospital bed. Cheers, Stephen Lehman. Thanks, everyone, for your good wishes. Rachel, get well soon. Yeah. Thomas Wilson wants to know, have you started watching the new series of SAS Who Dares Wins? I have. It's a celebrity one now, of course. The usual suspects of who I thought would go off have gone off. Ulrika Johnson looked like death.
No, don't spoil it for us.
Oh, have you not watched it?
No.
Are you watching it in bulk, like?
I will. Yeah, I normally. To be honest, I normally do. I normally just sit.
Right, okay.
I do a big chunk of it.
All right. Well, yes, I'm watching it, and I guess we'll have to discuss it once Liam's caught up. Dear me, oh, sorry, mate. Don't think Maxi will get a kick of the ball against Man U. Teams seem to know how to play against him. If he gets a few tackles on him, he doesn't seem interested. Which, again, I wouldn't disagree with. But he's our best chance of anything creative, isn't he? Really, in any game.
Yeah, he is. I think it's a bit harsh saying not interested. I just think he's that type of player. I think he does flit in and out of games. He has got that ability, but he's a pretty special player when he really fancies it. And like I say, I'm not going to go about criticising a player like that, because I'd rather have a player like that in my team than somebody else who hasn't got that kind of quality but will run and tackle all day for you. I think there is a room in an 11-player game to have some that little maverick quality that he has. Anybody who's watched the team that we put together in the summer, I was big on Hatem Ben Arfa. I had him in my team just simply for that X factor. And I think Alan St Maximin's got that. Is he really what you need? Going somewhere like at Old Trafford? Possibly not. But could I take him out of the team? Absolutely not. He starts, if he's fit, he starts every week for me.
Yeah, me too. He's the one hope that we've got, in getting something. Getting something. Geordie Sancaster says, keep off the drugs, Steve. 1-0 to the tune, might be, but Joe Linton to score. Come back and see us next week. You never know. It could be worse, says John Brown. We could be Arsenal.
Yes, it could be.
Yeah,
we could have just spent 160 million quid in the transfer window, of course.
Yeah. What's the betting that we don't get a shot on target, Liam? Says Alan Thompson. Yeah, pretty good bet that as well.
We'll have to get the tipster on for that one, but it could be, the way things are going, you never know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to hear what the Toon tipster and Toon Stato have got to say. Have to stop bringing Joe Linton off the bench instead of Gale. Gale's much more capable of scoring goals. He has to get more game time, better than he gets credit for. I mean, any news on Wilson? Another one of those rumours circulating is that he's, essentially that he could be out for a little bit longer. And obviously we've lost Ryan Fraser now.
We've lost Ryan Fraser. We're waiting to see what the damage is there. Is he much of a loss? Not really, because he hasn't contributed a lot. But a big loss would be Callum Wilson. And it doesn't, the little noise that you hear, it doesn't sound great for the weekend. It doesn't sound great. Could he be back for Leeds? We've just got to hope. We've got to hope that the original prognosis, he's okay. Fingers crossed, I would love to see him play at the weekend, but he's been carrying this injury for a little while, by all accounts. Fingers crossed, it isn't quite as bad as it's one that can be managed, as we've seen. It's one that he went through. What was it, around 50 odd minutes feeling in the game against Southampton? Still managed to score a goal and still managed to complete, like I say, 50 minutes of Premier League intensity. So it's one of those that can be managed, but we've just got to hope the international break's been really good for him. It could be better, but the noises don't sound great.
Yeah, touching on England, what's your views been on those games that have been played?
I think it's I think the positive from the last game, Andorra, the only positive you can take is the kind of, I've heard stories of people that I know, people that my wife knows, my family know, etc., who've travelled down, got to see the game and taken their kids to their first England games at Wembley and those type of things. That's literally the only purpose that game serves. It doesn't serve it's got no footballing merit at all. And it's almost a waste of time having it on the international calendar. I suppose tell that to somebody who's from those minnow countries, and that's probably the pinnacle of their lives, the absolute pinnacle of their career. But it's a complete waste of time, has no football integrity, really. Apart from that, I think England have been, I've seen the second half last week, missed the first half. Seen the second half of the game last week, the better half, and it was just a really controlled, composed, clinical England, which was really good to see against a team who performed reasonably well at the tournament in the Euros, away from home in a hostile atmosphere. I think we're starting to see different sides to this England side. They're really good qualifiers. England tend to be really good qualifiers. We know that. But there's just something that little bit more about this side. This could be totally blown up if they go and balls it up against Poland. We know the first game against Poland wasn't straightforward. But no, I think England will qualify. They've probably already got enough in the bank now to have one little slip up here or there and still qualify as the leaders in that tournament. But yeah, I'm really positive about the way this England side's going. They've probably got a core of about, I would say, 15, 16, 17 players who are real top quality. And then got a band of around another 10 to 15 after that, who are all of a really decent quality as well. So yeah, I think all things bode well for the World Cup next year. And fingers crossed, you never know, they might go one better. But a new tournament is tough to get out of groups, tough to get through second rounds, quarterfinals, semi-finals. They'll not get many opportunities like they did, and you just got to hope that if they do next time that they take it.
Give us a quick plug for where people can find your work, Liam.
Down here. give this a follow. You've been helping us out. Thank you very much, Steve, for the promotion, and everybody out there who retweets his stuff, all that kind of thing, because it helps me and my profile and Newcastle World's profile, more importantly. At Newcastle_World, if you like the things that we talk about, like the things that we do. In Newcastle World, we try and do things a little bit differently. I've still brought a little bit of the old flavour of the type of stuff that I wrote at the Gazette. Some of the longer opinion pieces, I've just squeezed a few of those in recently. And if you like that kind of thing, you will get catered for as well. But we tend to try and look between the lines with our content and take a different look on the stories that break. So yeah, give it a follow. If you can't find it on Twitter, just search me at Liam J Kennedy 23, and you'll find that it'll be pinned to the top of my profile. You'll be able to find Newcastle World there. So no, thank you for everybody out there who's supported the new project so far. Keep the likes coming, keep the retweets coming, keep the page views coming as well, because it all matters to me and all reflects really well on me. So thank you everybody out there for your support.
Great stuff, mate. That hours flew over as always. We'll have some football to talk about, of course, next week. Have a good one, mate. Let's hope things progress nicely. And as Liam says, please give him a follow at Newcastle World. Keep spreading the word. He's trying to build that up, and it's fantastic. Great reading, a lot of great articles on there already. I'm back tomorrow night with the Retro team. We had a week off last week, so we will be back tomorrow looking at games between Newcastle United and Sheffield United, and all your usual favourites, including players that played for both teams, and of course everyone's recollections of games between Newcastle and Sheffield United. Thursday night will be me, Gibbo and Supermac, and the Fab Four will be slightly earlier on Friday. We will be doing 4 to 5:30 as I have a boxing show on Friday night, and it is my last one. Finally hung up my promoter's licence this week after 9 years. That's an exclusive for you lot. That will be going out tomorrow in the press. But yeah, been an interesting 9 years, but time to move on and do other things. But big thank you to you, Liam. As always, have a good week. See you next Tuesday, mate. Take care.
Cheers.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to